stepmother Fukuro Kaharu wraps a coin in her stepdaughter Owamitsu's rice ball. The hard plastic pendant on the refrigerator is also put into the lunchbox. But the strange thing is, Owamitsu came home at night and said the rice balls were delicious. When Fukuro Kaharu heard this, she didn't react on the surface. In fact, she was so angry that she almost pulled her hair out. Fukuro Kaharu went out of the house in anger. She saw a child on a swing. She went over to the swing and pushed it hard. The girl was so scared that she cried out. Luckily, the girl's mother stopped her in time. She pushed Fukuro Kaharu to the ground. Fukuro Kaharu was walking on the road in frustration. Seeing a train approaching, she lay down on the tracks in silence, a tear flowing from the corner of her eye. She used to work in the community and was a kind woman. She even went to the extent of offending her boss to help a child who was being abused. At home, she was also perfect. Although she was abandoned by her mother at an early age, Kaharu did not give up on herself. Instead, she took good care of her sister. Even her father and grandfather relied on her. But one night, Kaharu's grandfather had a heart attack and collapsed in the toilet. The family drove him to the hospital. On the way, a drunken man had a car accident. She calls an ambulance, but someone called Kaharu and told her that her bicycle shop was on fire. It turns out that they had left the mosquito incense in a hurry. Now the family's only source of income had been burned to the ground. It was late at night when Kaharu finished her statement. She was tired and ready to seek comfort from her boyfriend. But as soon as Kaharu pushed the door, she saw that her boyfriend and her friend had betrayed her. In just one night, Kaharu experienced something unlucky that many people will never experience in their lifetime. She was walking on the road, her mind was blank, but just then, she saw someone even more unlucky. A drunk man just happened to fall on the tracks. The train was about to arrive and the man was on the verge of death. Kaharu's instinct was to go to his aid, but then she suddenly stopped. She was so kind, but had no good reward, so she might as well be an indifferent spectator. But when the train left, the drunk man was saved by Kaharu. Kindness drove away her darkness. Under Kaharu's care, the man sobered up the next day. Before he left, he gave Kaharu a business card. He said he would repay Kaharu. Kaharu didn't care. Because of her recent troubles, her car dealership had been burned down and her family had lost their income. But her grandfather needs money for hospitalization and her sister needs money for school. Kaharu's father only knows how to fix cars and can't find any other job. But just like in the fairy tale, Cinderella finally meets her prince. Even though the prince was once a drunk, last night's drunk was named Sumizawa Eiko. He is a doctor and he opened a private hospital at a young age. Whether it's expensive clothes, fine jewelry, or gorgeous high heels, if Kaharu took one more look, Eiko would buy them all. Their relationship grew closer and closer, but Kaharu still had some worries. Because Eiko has a daughter, Owamitsu, Eiko has a delicate mind. He quickly guessed Kaharu's thoughts, so he brought Owamitsu out to meet with Kaharu. Kaharu realized that Eiko's daughter was very nice to be around. She was not only polite but also lively, so Kaharu and Eiko formed a new family. Kaharu thought she had finally found happiness, but little by little, she realized that Owamitsu was not as innocent as it seemed. During lunch break, the students were eating. Owamitsu is aloof. She watches a boy playing with his girl. Then Owamitsu suddenly burst into tears. She says she has no bento to eat. She blames her stepmother Kaharu for not preparing it for her. But in fact, since Kaharu married Eiko, she wakes up early every day to prepare a delicious lunch for Owamitsu. Owamitsu was clearly lying. At dinner time, Eiko reminds Kaharu that she can't give Owamitsu shrimp or she'll get a stomachache. But while washing the dishes, Kaharu suddenly remembers that she added shrimp powder to her bento the other day. But Owamitsu smiled and told Kaharu not to worry. That day, Owamitsu came home depressed. She said that Kodo had taken her stationery bag. Kaharu had made the bag herself, and she had always cherished it. Kaharu vaguely remembered that Owamitsu had always had a crush on Kodo. Boys often bully the girls they like, so it's not a big deal. But Eiko's reaction was intense. He suspected that Owamitsu was being bullied at school. The next day, He goes to the school and asks the principal about the situation. The principal often buys vaccines at cost from Miko's hospital. He took the matter very seriously. The principal asked Kodo to come over and apologize, but it was Kodo's parents who apologized. Kodo angrily said that he never took Owamitsu's stationery bag. That was the end of the matter. Kaharu was about to go home. Owamitsu's teacher stopped her. Thinking about the previous incident with the shrimp powder, Kaharu finally began to suspect that Owamitsu had never eaten the lunch she made. But Kaharu is a kind girl. She doesn't want to think too badly of Owamitsu. She just thinks that she is so unloved that she sometimes lies to get the attention of her parents and teachers. As a woman, she told her mother-in-law about the incident. She wanted to get to know Owamitsu better, but her mother-in-law said she wasn't a good grandmother or a good mother. As a child, Eiko was a loner and was often bullied by his classmates. But instead of helping her son, she blamed him for not fitting in. Once, she even slapped her son. This directly caused Eiko's eardrum to be perforated. So Eiko still has tinnitus. Eiko did have some problems too. Kaharu found a room in the house that was always locked. It was filled with nude paintings of Eiko's childhood. He thought it was romantic to witness aging in this way. He also made a taxidermy of the rabbit he had as a child, saying that he would always remember it. In short, the collection in this room is full of weirdness. The peaceful life was finally shattered. The cause was a toilet. One day, Kaharu found a clogged toilet. After the workers cleaned it, they found a stationery bag inside. Kaharu then realizes that Owamitsu is not only love-starved, she even framed her classmates. Owamitsu enters the classroom. She finds Koda's favorite girl playing at the window. Owamitsu greets her affectionately on the surface, but gives her a cruel look. Meanwhile, Kaharu also makes a decision that goes against her conscience. She wants to help Owamitsu destroy the evidence once and for all. On that day, Kaharu and Owamitsu prepared to go to the girl's funeral. But Owamitsu won't take off his red shoes. The color red symbolizes the exorcism of evil spirits in Japan. Wearing red shoes at a funeral is a great disrespect to the deceased. The guests accuse Kaharu of being insensitive. Unbeknownst to them, this was a sign of Owamitsu's weakness. In the dessert store, Kaharu was even more horrified by Owamitsu's words. She's always getting in my way. Obstruction. So I let her play out. In the evening, Kaharu finds their old family photos in Eiko's drawing room. At first it was normal, but when he turned to the back of the book, Kaharu finds that all of Eiko's ex-wife's heads have been altered. At that moment, Owamitsu suddenly appears and Kaharu is taken aback. She accidentally knocks over Eiko's most prized rabbit specimen. Owamitsu finally stops pretending. She reveals her nasty nature. You broke the rabbit. I'll tell Dad that you broke the rabbit. After hitting her, Kaharu regrets it again. After all, Owamitsu was still a child. Kaharu apologized to Owamitsu and asked her not to tell Eiko. Owamitsu outwardly agrees, but she immediately tells Eiko about the incident at dinner. Eiko loses his temper with Kaharu. He says she doesn't deserve to be a mother. Kaharu finally decides to leave the house. Although the home was once so warm and welcoming, perhaps Owamitsu didn't think things would come to this. She chased Kaharu out the door and begged her not to leave. She didn't want to lose another mother. Kaharu was also a bit heartbroken. Owamitsu's figure seemed similar to her childhood. That's how Kaharu's mother abandoned her back then. But Kaharu still had the heart to leave. She didn't have the courage to go back to her dysfunctional family. But when she returned home, Kaharu found a happy family. She didn't want to spoil the happy atmosphere with her own business. Perhaps the final destination for everyone is loneliness. Kaharu was lying on the railroad track where she met her husband. A tear escaped from the corner of her eye, but she didn't die either. Eiko rescues her and puts her wedding ring on her finger once again. The moment the family portrait was hung on a wall, Kaharu was completely integrated into the family. But just then, Owamitsu returned. She was crying in her bare feet. She said that her shoes had been stolen by a classmate. Kaharu and Eiko were furious. They went to the school radio station to find someone to tell the culprit to come out or face the consequences. The word criminal angers Kodo. He decided to tell everything. I saw it. Owamitsu pushed the class president down the stairs. I really saw it. I'm not lying. The class president's death was no accident. Owamitsu pushed her. Did you really see it? I didn't lie. I saw it with my own eyes. Owamitsu pushed her down. How could my daughter do such a thing? Although Kaharu refuted Kodo's words, but she had a slight doubt in her mind. She and her husband went home and asked Owamitsu for the truth. But Owamitsu threw a tantrum, saying that her parents didn't trust her. She was simply an unloved child. Eiko understands completely. He decided to leave all of himself behind. He lives only for Owamitsu from now on. He set fire to all the treasures in his studio. From then on, he had only one treasure, and that was Owamitsu. But even so, there was nothing they could do to change things. Murderer was written on the glass by angry parents, and bricks were thrown into the bedroom. What should they do? It doesn't matter if they suffer, but Owamitsu must be happy. The perverse love led Kaharu to think of a plan to destroy humanity. The next day, they came to the school dressed as doctors and nurses to vaccinate the children. Later, Kaharu and Eiko gave Owamitsu a lesson in person. The family looked happy and cheerful, but outside the classroom, the entire hallway was covered with corpses. The love of parents is great, but too much of it can be a deadly poison for children to grow up with. This movie is an exaggeration, but a warning to us all. You can subscribe and leave comments if you have any ideas. Thanks for watching. See you next time.